You're listening to From the Chair, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. Join us each episode as we talk to athletic directors from across America. We're going to talk about topics like leadership, career development, issues of the day, and I can promise you we're going to have some fun along the way too. So sit back, listen in, and let's dive in. Let's go. Really looking forward to this one today. Danny White, the athletic director at the University of Tennessee. Danny, welcome in.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you having me this morning.
So good to be with you, and appreciate your patience as we've gone through some production issues this morning. But we're live now. So, I was thinking in preparation for our conversation, I think I've known you maybe since you were at Ole Miss, and when you were in your development role at Ole Miss, and then followed your career at Buffalo and in Central Florida, and obviously now to Tennessee. And having worked there in Knoxville for 19 years, I'm excited about you being there and looking forward to all the great things I know you'll do. And in thinking about your history and your time in athletics, you can't think very long about that without recognizing just your family history, and you're tied to the industry really since, let's call it birth, right? And you have certainly plowed your own field and have a great career record, great career track. And if there's a sort of, let's call it an aristocracy in football coaching, it's probably the Bowden family. And in athletic administration, I would say that it's the White family, with you and your dad and your brothers and your sister all involved in athletics in some way, shape, or form. And so that's where I want to start today. I just want to kind of dial it back to that and talk about not only maybe some of the learnings in your family growing up as to why you decided you want to work in college athletics. Obviously, your dad is legendary in this business, the things you've learned from him, but maybe even some of the things that you've learned from being, let's call it, behind closed doors with other folks in the industry through the years. And so as a foundation, maybe give us a little history on how that legacy brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason is I'm not smart enough to do anything else. Been around college sports my whole life, and my parents started, both of them were coaching track in high school and then became college track coaches, and we moved around quite a bit. I think as siblings, that made us pretty close. But they've always been all in, and even though Pops retired a couple weeks ago, they're not going to get too far from a college campus and from competition. I think he was on maybe day 8 of retirement when he showed up to our home game. Both my parents did for our home game against Pitt. That was his first as a fan. But we've been around it. We've been around student athletes coming to our home as kids and donor parties and all those things. And I don't think any of us, I think I can speak. I know I can because I've talked to them about it. Both my brothers and my sister Mariah, excuse me, I don't think any of us planned to work in college sports as we're going through those formative years, the latter part of high school and college. And but when it really came down to that point we all get to, where what are you going to do for a living? It was hard for us to see ever leaving this kind of unique world that we all live in. And our staff, we talk about it. This is not a career. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. You're never not working, but you're also not ever really fully working. You should be passionate about it and love it. If you don't, then you're going to really struggle with the hours and the commitment that it takes. And so I've been really fortunate to be able to, bounce things off both of my brothers. Having a brother that's a coach, I think has really helped me as an AD. I didn't really see that. I coached for a couple of years. I think that gave me a little bit of perspective, but be able to talk to Mike is really helpful. And then obviously having a brother that's an AD and a sister that's an assistant AD, and we all talk to Pops as well. But all the people that have been on staffs, and one thing I admire about my dad's career is the commitment he's always had to the people that are on his teams and their professional development. And there's a whole lot of people that have gone on to become very successful in this business. And they're an extension of a network that I tap into all the time. And so I'm very fortunate. I know that to have those resources, and they've really helped me, each and every one of them, in different ways along the way. And I'll continue to use that network in ways that help Tennessee and hope to give back as well. Kind of to I'm way too young to say that next generation, I think at least, but we'll always be really focused on professional development and making sure that we're helping others achieve their career goals and get through those times that we all have in this position. We find ourselves in, no matter how many wars we've been through, there's always a unique situation. There's always a very difficult challenge, and helping each other get through those things, I think, is important.
No doubt, man. Well, it's certainly I have great respect for your dad, all of you guys, but your dad I've known for a long time, obviously, and through my friendship with Jim Phillips, but also just with your dad in particular. And so you come from great place, and I know that will serve you well here going forward. You in your time in Central Florida, you guys had incredible success in the classroom, fundraising, facilities, and most importantly for an athletic director in the fields of competition, right? So you had by all measures the opportunity to just, I would imagine, to look at the landscape with the number of jobs that come open each year, the churn that comes open each year. I'm sure that there would be a lot of opportunities for you to take the next step from Central Florida, albeit a great job in and of itself. You chose when the Tennessee job came open earlier this year that this was the one. And, I have some biased opinions on why it would be from having been there for as long as I was. But I want to hear from you. Why Tennessee? And I'm sure our audience would like to hear a little bit of that as well, because, look, let's speak candidly. A lot of success for a long time at the University of Tennessee, probably, honestly, with the football program being down a little bit right now, some of the other sports that have been very successful over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years haven't maybe been given their due in terms of their level of success. But everybody looks at Tennessee through a lens of football in many ways. So just your assessment of why you took that particular job and what you're seeing here early on in your tenure.
Sure. Yeah, I think that latter point is a great one, and one that is missed by a whole lot of people, including myself. This cloud of the challenges we've had with football, I think has had a pretty significant impact on the perception of all of other sports. We had our best spring season by the Learfield Cup points ever last spring. There's so many sports that are just humming at a really high level, really talented coaches. So coming in here, I learned that pretty quickly. It doesn't take long to see that we're nationally ranked in almost every sport and getting to know these coaches. So I'm enjoying working with some folks that have been here for a long time and are doing a great job and trying to find different ways that we can support them and take their programs to even higher levels. But Tennessee was, if you would have asked me 9 months ago, am I ever leaving UCF, I would have said no. We were building our dream house 3 blocks away from the house we were living in Winter Park in Florida, and had really put down roots and had planned to be there forever. I loved what I was doing. Still love that place. I think I'm a believer in where UCF is going in the future. A huge believer, and I think they have great leadership with Terry and Gus and everything that's going on there. It's going to continue to grow. So I didn't imagine myself leaving, but I kind of was presented with an opportunity here that the similarities to what I walked into at UCF were compelling, and to be able to go through that process. And our work at UCF wasn't done. There's a lot of work more to do, but felt like we had it in a really good place from a not so good place. And I enjoyed going through that process. I really like partnering with a community. I like building strong relationships with donors that believe in what we're trying to do, and with coaches that believe in taking something from a lower level to a much higher level. That's what I came through fundraising and before I got to the AD position, and I think that it probably rubbed off on me a little bit, and just the concept of building. There's no way I would have left there for a place that was already kind of going at a high level. I think I'd be bored to tears. I don't know what I would do. And so I hadn't really considered that the big brand historic place as one that could be a build. And that's kind of how Tennessee was presented to me. And that's what I ultimately felt like was exciting and a new challenge. And to be able to go through the process kind of like we did at UCF, but at a place that's been there and with a fan base that has this passion. I thought it'd be a lot of fun, and it has been. It's been a challenge. The last 8 months have been a lot harder on me, I think, than they would have been if I would have stayed, obviously, because building is hard. But it ultimately proved to be just a compelling professional challenge that I couldn't turn down. And it's really hard to leave the last place, really hard, but excited about what we can do here. The more I've learned about this place, and as you know, these people care so much. There's every opportunity to win at the highest level in this conference and nationally. And there's a lot of work to do, and we're in the process of doing that work, but then also trying our best to educate our fans and the community, our donors, our university community, that there's real things we need to do to get back to where y'all had it when there was a significant amount of competitive advantages for coaches and student athletes here at Tennessee.
Yeah. An outside observation, just, sitting here 3 hours down the road from you, the thing that I see that I think is different from what I've seen in the last several years is alignment. The presidential, chancellor, board, athletic director alignment. And I hate that maybe it's taken what some would call times of crisis to get there, but that's an observation. And I think we did have that at one point there. And so if that's a true statement, then I think that you're set up with your skill set and the hires you've made to take advantage of all that. And I already know you've got a great brand and great fans, as you've alluded to. So looking forward to where that's all going to go.
No question. Yeah, we have a great chancellor, president, board chair. They all came to our house in Florida, and it was so obvious that they were aligned, as you say, but also they think similar to how I think and similar to each other. They're very aggressive. It's a business-minded approach. And they have a great vision for the future of this whole campus and the UT system. So I'm fortunate to work under great leadership for sure.
So, coaching searches are always hairy, right? And particular, it's important for football there to succeed after the last several years. And you made a decision to bring Josh along with you. I know that was after vetting other candidates, but giving the hairy nature that I just discussed around football searches, talk about, let's call it mitigation of risk with bringing someone alongside of you to sit in that very important chair. Obviously, you have to believe he can be successful there. You wouldn't do it, right? But if you would, just sort of unpack that process a little bit.
Yeah, it was obviously a whirlwind. Having strong leadership was really helpful. I wouldn't have taken this position if there was going to be 25 cooks in the kitchen on the coaching search. They allowed me to run a really professional search. We talked to a whole lot of people that nobody knows about, and that's probably the biggest thing to define whether a search was successful or not. I was allowed to. The first thing I did is I connected with our student athletes on the team and had them vote on a leadership council. Got their feedback. That really helped me a lot understand what was going wrong in the program. And then I use that information as I talk to candidates across the country and kind of vet what I think is going to match what this place needs. And people get so caught up in whether it's brand name coaches or recruiting rankings and all this buzz that it's great for probably our industry that our fans are excited 12 months out of the year and there's a 12-month dialogue going on. But at the end of the day, where we've found success along the way, it's hiring really good people that are in this thing for the right reasons and care about kids and know their sport. In this case, obviously, we need a coach that knows football, and Josh checks all those boxes and believes in where we're trying to go and is going to try to build it the right way. But then there's got to be a match. There's got to be a fit. And in terms of style of play and culture, I really felt like what could make us distinctive in our conference is to play a more modern, innovative style of football, both offensively and defensively. So we were looking for that. Our players were looking for a more modern culture. They wanted to kind of bring the fun back to the program. As I went through the process and kind of continued to digest new information, and you go through these interviews and you kind of just sit down and think about it all. I really felt like the culture that these kids wanted is what we had established at UCF, and felt like that would be successful here. And as I think about, and the more I've learned about Tennessee, just going back even to the 60s and 70s, this has been an innovative place for a long time. We built the brand being innovative. We have this bold orange color. We built this big national brand as a public university before it was kind of in vogue to do that. And we had a national recruiting footprint. Back in the 90s, the last time we were really, really good, we had an innovative offense and defense. And so bringing Josh and a lot of the components that we had at UCF, which was kind of the uber modern place. I used to say we're the Amazon of college sports. We're so young. Just seemed like a really good fit and someone I know that I can trust to do it the right way. Obviously, we've had some NCAA issues here, but beyond that and much bigger than that, doing right by kids and trying to develop them, make sure they have a great experience. I think if you approach it the right way, more oftentimes than not, you're going to have success. You obviously have to have talent on your roster. You have to have talent on your coaching staff, and those things all need to align. And we got to make sure that we support them. Going back to the brand name coach that fan bases love to talk about and talk show radio. As you know, that same coach can win or lose depending on how they're supported and the circumstances around their program. And that's what we had going at a high level at UCF, and that's what we need to do a really good job of here at Tennessee, is supporting our coaches and making sure that we're setting up Josh for success, he and his staff.
Right. You alluded to history, and you guys unveiled 4 statues at Neyland Stadium, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, of historical significance, significant accomplishments by African-American football players in the history of Tennessee, not only in the history of Tennessee, but in the history of the Southeastern Conference. So let's, for the public, the listeners, let's talk just a little bit about that, the decision to do that, and what your thought process was there. I think it's been great from all feedback that I've seen. It's
been awesome. One of the things I enjoy the most, about every other day I'll get a little text with a photo of people when our staff are walking by or whatever, of people taking pictures with those statues just randomly throughout the week. That was a really cool project to be a part of, and one that I'll give some background quick before I get into it. But when I first got here, I learned about this story that we have 4 historic firsts, not just in Tennessee's history, but in the history of the SEC. We have the first black football player to score a touchdown, the first to be an All-American and a team captain, the first black quarterback in the history of the SEC, and the first national championship black quarterback in the SEC. When I learned about it, I said, how quickly can we tell this story? And they had been contemplating doing statues or some kind of way to commemorate this. So we put them right in front of Gate 21, as you know, kind of the main entrance where our team goes through the Vol Walk. It's a prominent location right in front of the stadium, and with the goal of having that be a part of the Neyland Stadium experience. We wanted our fans and our students every day on campus to learn about this iconic accomplishment, the courage that those men showed in coming here and kind of paving the way for future generations, not only, again, within Tennessee, but across the Southeastern Conference and nationally in a lot of ways. So it's a really cool story, and it's one of those things where it wasn't probably until the ceremony where I realized how heavy it was. And I saw the pride, not so much actually in our honorees' faces. They were obviously prideful, and Lester McLean, who was our first, did a phenomenal job with his words. But the pride in their teammates' faces really moved me. And in these jobs, you kind of sometimes stumble upon a situation that maybe I certainly hadn't planned on it being that moving. I knew it was a big deal. I was excited about it, but it was a real significant moment. One of the most special things I've ever been a part of.
It truly is. Well, so I couldn't have a conversation with you without talking about UCF for just a minute again, particularly in light of the announcement here recently, the move to the Big 12, because I know that there are a lot of people that were instrumental in that happening, Danny. But obviously during your tenure, you helped set the vision for Terry actually told me this past week. He said, the bases were loaded and we just had to knock it in, right? Knock the run in, and so that's kudos to you and your staff. But you've got to have a ton of pride in the fact that university now moves to the Big 12. Tell me a little bit about why that's a fit, and maybe some of the vision casting that has been in place now for some period of time to help get them there.
Yeah, I know I talked about earlier the perception of football in Tennessee and kind of the shadow that maybe things aren't as good as they really are. The success of football at UCF probably overshadows the fact that there's a whole lot of sports there in the top 25 and the top 10 and advancing in the NCAA postseason and just way overachieving compared to what their budget should suggest and history should suggest. So there's really good coaches there. Our goal from the onset, going back 5.5 years ago or so, 6 years, 5.5 years ago, I guess it was, but was everybody's talking about lobbying and all these things and what can we do to get into the Big 12. I think it was kind of a distraction actually across our whole conference. And when we came together as a leadership team, and we had a great leader in John Hitt, Dr. Hitt, the president who hired me there, we realized really quickly there's no amount of lobbying and handshaking that's going to get you into a better conference. We can't convince another conference that we're what they need. We need to just focus on ourselves. And that's what we did, and we worked really hard, and there's a whole lot of people that are responsible for what just happened. I'm really proud to have been a small part of it, and really excited for the future of that place. I think it's going to continue to absolutely explode. It has all the advantages going for it, and it's going to be fun to watch from afar. We're still UCF fans and huge supporters of that institution, but it's coaches, it's assistant coaches, it's staff that bought into something that we all kind of felt like we had this chip on our shoulder, and to a certain extent that's kind of the UCF DNA. Student athletes, we had student athletes citing our vision statement and what we were trying to do to really build a whole university. And it was a fun thing to be a part of, and there's a lot of takeaways I think from that I want to apply here in a different way. This is an iconic place, as I mentioned earlier, but getting a big group of people to rally around a common goal, I think can be very successful. And what happened at UCF is a great example of that.
Yeah. So we've got a couple more questions, and then we'll do a little speed round. But you have also recently announced, I guess what it's being termed as a modernization of your seating models at Tennessee. And with your history in development, obviously I find that intriguing. That's a big part of the fundraising initiatives around the country at different universities. And you and I have talked about the historical success of fundraising at Tennessee. But in particular, I find interesting that I'll call it the decoupling in terms of how the sports are going to be managed individually right now in terms of seating priority. There are some schools that do that in spots around the country. Maybe share just briefly here what your plan is on how you're going to leverage the success across your different sports in fundraising and in season ticket purchases.
Yeah, I think we're looking to simplify the model, make it easier to sell. We do have inventory, especially in football, that we need to move. It's something I've implemented at other places. One that we had at UCF. We have a great outbound ticket sales staff. We want to sell online as much as possible. So we need to make seats really easy to understand and simple to sell. The idea and feedback I got from donors a lot since I've been here. There's a little bit of frustration in the fact that there's some inequity that every place has. It's a historical thing. We all know that. But we have people sitting in great sections in the stadium that aren't paying a fair amount compared to their neighbors in their seats. And we also have some structural realities. The lower west side of the stadium is 100 years old and it needs to be replaced. So the project of a new lower west club was already kind of in the design phase when I got here. We just needed to decide, are we pulling the trigger or not? And the same with the north end zone deck. We tweaked both projects, but those are the only two that we could deliver for the 2022 season. And I knew we needed to start showing progress. Neyland Stadium needs probably $300 million plus of renovation. As you know, there's a lot of work that needs to happen there, a lot of work that has happened there. It's a big building and it's old. It's iconic and great and tradition rich, but there's a lot of things we need to do to improve the experience. So we pulled the trigger on those two to make progress for 2022. And then we're working on 2023 and beyond now. But in doing that, it kind of gave us the opportunity, because we're pulling out all those bleachers, replacing them with club seats, to kind of start over. And we needed to separate out basketball. Our basketball program and what Rick Barnes is doing is absolutely phenomenal. Kelly Harper as well, and obviously with our history with women's basketball. But we needed to separate that from football, so the football donation isn't tied to that. We can build our own business there in that arena. Obviously, with the capacity, the size of the fan base, I can't wait to see 22,000 in Thompson Bowling. I haven't seen it yet. Obviously, with COVID last spring, I was here for the tail end of basketball season, but there's a huge opportunity, I think, for us to build something special and monetize it from the arena. And provide a more equitable experience. And we're going to continue to look for more premium amenities that we can provide both in the stadium. And I think there's a huge opportunity to do that in the arena. As you know, the shell of that building is enormous. As the architects keep telling me, it's got the best bones they've ever seen. So there's great opportunities to build out some spaces. And we're looking at some of those things right now.
Yeah, for a building that had as much trouble getting out of the ground in the 80s, they did have good bones. And, it's, we did the additions for the suites and the club seats and that kind of thing, but there are obviously some more premium opportunities there, and I know you'll take advantage of that. So okay, you have alluded to the fact of wanting to pay it forward in terms of mentoring with your sort of life story in athletics, and you've had exposure to a tremendous number of administrators of success, and you've made a lot of changes at Tennessee. You've brought in a lot of new hires, particularly on the external side of the business. I'm curious, when you're making hires, what are the characteristics of the administration hires that you try to make when you're doing that?
The first thing I guess I try to do is assess where we are, and what I've said to every staff that I've walked into: if you're loyal and you work hard, we're going to find a role for you. There's plenty of work to do. We have plenty of work to do here at Tennessee. If we didn't, I wouldn't be here. And I think that there's ways to be flexible in an org chart, and the organizational chart on my staff is something that's never set in stone. I'm not sure it's ever written in pen. We're operating with pencil and eraser. We change it all the time, and I think it's a healthy thing to do, to evaluate at least every year who's doing what and why. And I like to simplify things and allow people to have a pretty simple focus and a micro focus. I think you can go deeper and have a bigger impact. People a lot of times building their career, they want to have as much responsibility as possible. They want to oversee all these things, and that's great. And you can have a lot of bullet points on your resume, but you can help the organization a lot more if you have a much deeper impact on a more focused portfolio. And when the organization is successful, that's when everyone gets opportunities. And it's coming in here. I first wanted to assess where we have strengths and where we need to get better, and what the opportunities were. I think that we need to grow our budget. You guys had back in the day one of the biggest budgets in college sports. We need to get back to that if we're going to meet the expectations of the fan base. I think the size of the fan base gives us the opportunity to do that. So what are we doing to make that happen? Obviously, our partnership with Learfield on the sponsorship side is a huge opportunity to do that. I want to do everything I can to push that. But the announcement we made yesterday in terms of seat-based giving is an important part of it. There's a lot of things that go into that. So where we don't have that perspective, we need to bring it in, and we've been fortunate in bringing in some really good people. Tennessee's a great place to recruit to, and the prospect of what we're trying to do to rebuild the brand is an exciting opportunity for folks. So we're able to get some people in with great experiences at other universities they can bring here, and couple that with folks that are talented and have been here for a while and really know this place. I think you got to kind of thread that needle a little bit, and you need both perspectives to build a plan. And we're in the process of building our strategic plan right now. That'll be a public document once we're done with it, but it'll be kind of in keeping with that same philosophy. Is we know we got a lot of work to do. How can we make things as simple as possible and easy to understand internally and externally? We'll build this brand from the inside out, starting with our student athletes and coaches and staff, and see where it goes.
Great. Well, look, you've been very gracious. Let's finish up with a couple of speed round questions. These are all lighthearted in nature. They'll all be softballs, right? So you lived in Florida for quite some time. East Coast or West Coast of Florida?
East Coast. Love the waves.
I think your family vacations on the East Coast, right? If I remember correctly. That's good.
We do.
I know you don't have a lot of time when you're in the chair, but I also know you have 4 kids. So favorite theme park in Orlando to take your kids?
Epcot. Walk around the world. Love it.
Got it. All right. So a lot of traditions at Tennessee: checkerboard end zones, vol walk, running through the tee, the vol navy. What's grabbed your attention so far in the most prolific way as a tradition there? I
think the not only running through the tee, but the whole pageantry what the band does leading up to that. It's really cool. I've seen it 3 times now, and it's powerful.
So I know you're a hard charging guy, so I'm sure you've got a pet peeve. What's your pet peeve?
Long meetings. Can't stand
it. You're not calling this a long podcast, are you? Are we okay on time right now?
We're under an hour, but we get close to an hour. I start to get antsy, and I really do think that leads to a lot of inefficiency. I really try to encourage our staff to make sure we're prepared for meetings. We get in, we get out.
I agree with you. Obviously, you've got the strength of your family, but do you have another mentor or a leadership follower, somebody that you rely upon for wise counsel?
A lot of them. It depends on the situation, and I think I don't have one specific person that I go to, and that's, again, I'm fortunate, haven't been around this my whole life. There's a lot of people I can call, and too many to name.
So my wife told me I couldn't ask you who your favorite former Tennessee athletic director between 2003 and 2011 was, so I won't do that.
Mike Hamilton. Final answer.
Yeah. Hey, look. Okay, so your brothers and you're playing horse in the backyard, which I know you guys played basketball in the backyard. Who's winning that game?
Me, no question. And it's not going to be played within the rules.
Oh man, I love it. Well, hey, look, Danny, you've been gracious with your time today, giving us some great insight. You've done a tremendous job through your career, and I know folks will be excited to watch what you're going to do at Tennessee. So I really appreciate you joining us.
No question. Thanks, Mike, for doing this, and I appreciate the profound impact you've had on our industry and continue to have, and everything you did here at Tennessee. We're gonna work hard to try to get it back to where you guys had it.
I know you will. So you've been listening to From the Chair with University of Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White, and I'm your host, Mike Hamilton. We'll see you next time on From the Chair.